Ending now my weaving, this autumnal day, in the fabric leaving some blossoms laid away. Rosemary remembrance, a bit of sorrow, me. Bleeding heart, love's semblance, forget me not for you. When in after years the faded hues you see, perchance with sudden tears, your thoughts will turn to me. Margaret Dashiell. Margaret Dashiell, while born in New Orleans in 1869, spent most of her life in Richmond, Virginia, growing up to be a prominent Richmond upper-class woman. As a prolific artist, illustrator, and writer, Dashiell soon owned her own gallery to showcase her work, most popular of which were her watercolor paintings of African-American domestic workers and street vendors. Dashiell's work paints a nostalgic memory of the Old South and of the everyday lives of African Americans throughout the 1920s and 30s in New Orleans, Charleston, and Richmond. Her paintings provide a portrayal of African American life through the eyes of an upper-class white woman, framing the scenes in a romanticized and idealistic light. The bright colors of the flowers being sold by a street vendor and genial faces of her subjects suggest a nostalgic tone to the time of the Old South, that same feeling welling up in viewers of her work. This framing of a time when Jim Crow laws severely limited African American life can skew the memory of that time period by riding the wave of the tagline, "separate but equal," and the illusion many white people had that the problem of race had been solved. Dashiell was always fascinated by African Americans and was known to slip away from parties and other social gatherings to talk to a family's cook or maid for inspiration to be transcribed into a poem or painting. The otherness she depicts in her work of the subjects so different from herself run parallel to the ideals behind the racial separation of the time, treating these people like subjects to be studied or viewed, captured in a frame of apathy to their condition. Many of Dashiell's paintings were images of street vendors in the 6th Street Market, a center of commerce in Richmond and one of the only places African Americans could attempt to earn a living. To look upon the paintings of Margaret Dashiell is to gaze through a window filtered with her nostalgia for that time, and her fascination with African American everyday life, and this caused a one-dimensional appropriation of that time in her watercolor paintings and other work. While Margaret Dashiell's paintings are beautifully captured scenes of post-Civil War African American life, they present an otherness of her subjects that allow contemporary viewers to dismiss any other depictions of that time. Many of Dashiell's subjects gaze back at the viewer with wary eyes that speak volumes about the distrust of the time. However, others are shown with carefree smiles and depict subjects who seem very content with their current circumstances. Still others are not given any discernible faces at all, a clear example of how African Americans were defined by their most superficial features, such as the color of their skin, and not defined by more personal details. The romanticized nostalgia for the Old South presented in the artwork of Margaret Dashiell skates over the murky past of the city of Richmond, Virginia, as well as the South as a whole, and creates a distance between that past and viewers of her work in the present, barred by bright colors and faces of quiet content.